Did you know that music breathes? Welcome to Learn Piano, a personal practice. I'm Cynthia from Cynthia Ali Studios, a place where you can learn and find your joy in music. In the last few episodes, I have talked about how rests are so important in music, and also about just resting in music and how they're different. If you're curious about these topics and you have not listened to our last two podcasts, you can check out Season 3, Episode 12 and Episode 13 to get caught up on what it means to rest in music. Today we're going to talk about something different, but just as powerful. This is the breath in music. Did you know that music actually breathes? As we begin today's episode, I want to share something with you from the perspective of a flute player. I also play flute. I'm not just a piano player, so I have a different perspective about breath in music. And I want to explain it to you through the eyes of a flutist to give you a different kind of understanding about breathing in music. When you play the flute, breath is obvious because it's a wind instrument. It's actually what powers the sound. And you know where the phrases in music end because your breath runs out and you have to take a breath. It's just natural, like how we breathe when we're talking. So when we start a new sentence, we will often take another new breath. But at the piano, our hands don't breathe. So we have to feel the breath and then mimic it with our movements. Our hands actually become the breath. When a musical phrase ends, the hands lift up very slightly, just as if they were taking an inhale. Then, as you play the phrase, your fingers and hands are exhaling until you complete the phrase, and then you take another breath in and begin again. So even though our hands don't actually breathe, we need to feel like they are. This will help you bring the music to life. Just like when we talked about music having a heartbeat and a pulse, music also has this other layer of breathing to make it come alive. I have a friend that does a meditation class, and one of my favorite meditations is the one called hand breathing. If we think of our hands and our fingers breathing in air, just for fun, we're going to try this. And then they will also exhale the breath. Just like how a flute player breathes in the air and exhales as they play to shape the phrases. We're just going to pretend for a moment that our fingers can breathe in air, and then the fingers play that phrase. As they're playing, the air is exhaling until the air runs out. Then the fingers lift up, breathing in, so the motion of lifting up is actually the inhale, and then you play the phrase. Let's try this with just a plain, easy C pentascale. So that you can try with your right hand on the keyboard. You're going to play C, D, E, F, G, and coming back down. And now to give the idea of how music breathes, we're just going to pretend for fun that your fingers actually can breathe in. And as you exhale, that will start your phrase. So we're going to breathe in with the fingers and start. So breathing in, and then we're exhaling through the fingers. And then the air is completely out, and then we lift our hands again, breathing in, exhaling. Now, if you're a singer, you could sing a note as you do that. You could just sing ah. So you would breathe in, Ah. And then as you're singing, you can try to feel that feeling of the breath in your hands. So let's do that again. And you can try this with me. Breathing in. Ah. And now just the hands only, and really concentrate on how it feels. Breathing in through the fingers and then exhaling. So breathing in. And then lift and breathe in. Exhale. So you can try this fun little exercise on your own and see if you can get the feel of that. Obviously, when you're playing the piano, you're not really going to be breathing in and out of your fingers or your hands, but it's more for you just to get that feel going in your hand, like how it feels to lift up your hands and then breathe through it for the phrase. This is just a tangible way for you to start understanding how phrases work in music and then how we try to imitate the breath as piano players. So let's try this now with a piece called Romance Without Words. This one has a very beautiful melody line, and I'll play the first part of the melody line and I'll explain to you how I'm using the idea of the breath in this piece. So I would inhale, lifting my hand as I come down to play the first note, and exhaling, and then lifting my hand up for the rest. It gives me a chance to inhale like you're breathing, starting again, and the breath is out. Now we're going to breathe in again for the rest. And then a very short breath. There's an eighth note rest. So a very quick breath in here, and then start again. So this is a good example of showing how you can make the piano notes very lyrical. On the contrast, I'm going to show you what it would sound like if you weren't consciously thinking about phrasing and breathing. It would sound more like this. More choppy, it doesn't have a good flow going with it, but I'm just going to play a small bit again so you can hear the contrast. See if you can hear the breathing. As you are learning how to play the piano, even when you are just beginning and starting out just with those few beginning pieces, try to think about the breath as you're playing. This will add so much more interest to your pieces. You will notice it right away when you start to implement this into your piano playing. For this week, while you're practicing, try the exercise of breathing through the hands. Find a piece that you enjoy. I would suggest just to try it with your right hand only. Just will be much easier than hands together. You can take a 4-measure part to your piece, and you could draw a line across the top with the slur. Even if the song is not calling for that, just put that in there for an exercise, just to give yourself an example of how to do it. So you're going to draw that line in there. You're going to start the piece with your hand, and you will just imagine yourself breathing in before you start, and then as you play, imagine your fingers are exhaling, and they will be exhaling until you complete those 4 measures, and then exhaling fully, and then you'll take a rest, lift your hand up in the air, and then you could repeat that same thing again through the 4 measures, and then when you complete that, exhale again. Just so you get the idea of how that is going to feel when you play a piece. One thing to keep in mind is that when you are breathing or doing phrases in music, you want to stay within the tempo. Don't do the breath or the little lift up too long to come out of the tempo. Make sure you lift your hand up right on beat and come back right down in time. Another exercise that you could try is you could do like flute players do. You could mark in the breaths with a comma. For the flutist, the comma goes above the top staff, and you would be playing along underneath that phrase marking, that slur. And then when you come to the end of the slur, there would be a little comma reminding you to take your breath. You're not going to normally do that as a piano player, but if you're having trouble understanding how the breath works, you could add them in just to give yourself a reminder, like, here is the end of my musical sentence, the end of the phrase. I need to take a breath and then start going again. So I would like to encourage you to start feeling the breath through your hands and your fingers while you're practicing the piano this week. I know it's a little different to think about your hands breathing, but we do need to make the music come alive. Just as we have the pulse and the heartbeat of music, we also have the breath with the phrasing, and this will make your pieces come so much more alive. Thank you for tuning in today to hear the podcast. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, and follow so you never miss a story or a lesson. I can't wait to continue this journey with you. To find out about what's happening in the Cynthia Ali Studios community, you can go to cynthiaalistudios.com/piano community and find out about our book club and about our upcoming classes and events. We also have an Instagram page and Facebook, so check us out on all of our socials. Until next time, keep practicing the piano and enjoying music.